I'm now back on the national committee side to make sure that we can take back our assembly, our Senate, get rid of Governor Sisolak, and get rid of Catherine Cortez Masto, and that's why
I can give you the summary of the 81st legislative session. It stunk. It was awful. It was criminal. It should never have occurred. My belief
our
is...
calls for this governor's limited powers, this single branch of government, mandating that we wear masks again. I'm a medical doctor. I've been a county health officer.
Welcome, everybody, to the first meeting of the Sierra Republican Club. Before we do anything else, Maurice Washington, which I'll introduce a little later, more detail, state senator and pastor, he's going to give a prayer. Maurice?
So I'm going to ask everybody if you'd just stand with me. And I know that somebody had already asked me, you know, pastors have a tendency to kind of run off at the mouth over and over again. So Ray asked if I could do a short prayer. So if you could just bow your heads. Amen. Father God, we just thank you for your grace and goodness. Thank you for your kindness. I pray that you continue to lift and bless and use us for your purpose, your honor, and your glory. This is a great country with great people that love this country and are patriots. And we pray, oh God, that as we move forward, that you would give us great success and that we would maintain the traditions that we've been rooted and grounded in. And God will give you the glory and honor in Jesus' name. America first.
Thank you. If everybody join Michael Jack for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you were.
Thank you. Yourselves. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to introduce some of our very important people. I'll try to go around and Bill will try to capture this. The first one, Jessica Hansen. She's the stand up. The executive for the Nevada GOP, executive director, okay? And head boss. Next one is Jan Glosini. She's the Washoe County clerk. I got it. Morning. Paul Jackson is the head of First Friday. Maurice Washington, besides being a pastor at the church on Pyramid, that he's also the Nevada recruiting candidate chairman and a Washoe recruiting chairman. Michael Jack was the former vice chairman of the Washoe GOP and is running for the state of Nevada GOP chairmanship. Sandy Masters is the founder of the Mount Rose Republican Women. Among other things, the list is too long. She's worse than me. Next candidate, and he'll be speaking briefly, is Cameron Watkins. He's running for lieutenant governor. Jeff Church is one of the only pearls of wisdom we have on the Washoe School Board. Mickey Lufkin is running for Nevada governor. Diane Vanderwell is with the Spark City Council. Tom Heck is running for Nevada governor. Jim Hindle is up in Virginia City, but he's vice chairman of the Nevada GOP. John Kerry is the current Washoe Vice Chairman. The power behind is Rita's wife, Lori. We'll introduce the other candidates at the main table when they go up to speak. But in the meantime, P.K. O'Neill, in 40, he's in 40. Robin Titus is the minority assembly leader and doctor, medical doctor. Joe Weaver. Who? Oh, okay. Joe Weaver is the Nevada director for the national GOP. And I didn't forget you. I was walking past. Dr. Fred Simons is running for governor you're out of Gardnerville, right?
Gardnerville.
Out of Gardnerville. Excuse me. I have one more candidate, one more person. Scott is the new chairman of the Carson City GOP. My apologies.
So I don't want to talk a whole lot, but my mission is to help candidates get elected. And guess what? Now we got this on video, founding members. So go ahead and sign up. If you bought one of the $30, it's only $15 more to sign up. And all our money will be going into equipment and training candidates, period. So
one other thing, the $20 is very cheap to join. If you want family membership, you get 2 members and any children under 24. Such a deal. Sign up or we
Ray
lock
Rocha,
the doors.
fill
and
me
you
in
can't
on
get
the 2 new Republican clubs.
So I just made a quick
Glad
comment.
to. The first one is called the Sierra Republican Club.
Come out for a kickoff breakfast at the Atlantis Casino on Tuesday, the 5th of August. Our keynote speakers will be Dr. Robin Titus, Nevada's Minority Assembly Leader, Assemblyman P.K. O'Neill, and Joe Weaver, State Director, Nevada Republican National Committee. So now on with Red
I
Move.
told you about the clubs, right?
Right.
So what I found was 4 years ago, this is when Right Side was streaming Trump. I was
Yeah.
actually streaming here, and I was watching the analytics and numbers and what I could do to get numbers. So I was getting 7,000 to 10,000 people targeted. We took 5 candidates, and I can actually show the analytics where they did well. So that's why I always wanted to develop some clubs where we had more control. And Ray knows everybody.
Absolutely, and he has for many years.
So that's sort of the background. And the Sierra Republican Club, and then the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is oriented towards business folks, and the Sierra Republican Club is oriented towards those grassroots folks who are out there fighting for principles of liberty and freedom.
How are you going to get
the
that
National
out?
Association
How
of
are we gonna get-
Podcasters, one of the few places where there's freedom of speech. We got some great podcasters out there, conservative. But if they're on YouTube, they're banned, they're taken off. So you can't answer this question. But I was going to ask you today, the governor of Nevada put a mask mandate on censored on this platform on YouTube and some of the other platforms we have.
Wow.
We won't be censored.
We're not answering that question.
will
No,
be
I
censored.
think this governor has really shown his true colors. A lot of people trusted that he had the best interest of the state and small
We
businesses. are
actually
paying the
have a
price.
set of debates laid out for the primaries for the Republicans, and we want to get the absolute best Republicans forward that are going to win the elections and sweep it. And I know
Love
you're
that.
there
Love
to
to
do
hear
it. We're going to do it up here in Northern Nevada, and you're going to be across the state.
Yeah, we're here to support you guys in any way we can.
Thank you, Joe.
And don't
Appreciate
forget
it.
to subscribe. And remember the Paul Revere effect. Get out, share this information. Let's get more people going and make something of it. It's going to be a good year. It's going to be a good year for Republicans. It's about time.
Test. Hello, everybody. My name is Tanner Durfee, and I am Sam Brown's political director / campaign manager / best friend. We started this, a couple months ago with the idea that the future is Republican in Nevada, and as we've gone around, all the rural counties and stuff the last couple of weeks, we've seen that a lot of people are ready for a new candidate and a breath of fresh air at the federal level. A lot of you guys have heard Sam speak, but I just wanted to come and tell you guys that things are going very well. Probably should take this off. Things are going very well, and if you guys have any direct questions, feel free to come talk to me. Sam regrets he couldn't be here today. He's got some family stuff he's dealing with. So if I could ask you guys to just pray for him, that'd be great. And don't forget, duty first. Thank you.
Did you bring literature? Next candidate.
Are we good? Hi, I'm Tom Heck. I'm running for governor of the state of Nevada because we need someone tough and strong. Have you guys read basically the headlines in the news this morning? I'll summarize for you. CDC, the people who are doing the stuff for COVID, they basically extended the moratorium on evictions. Who gave them the authority to legislate? New Mexico school board was removed by the governor because they wouldn't enforce the mask policy. New York is requiring vaccines to go to restaurants. In Texas, the governor tried to stop vehicles that had illegals in it so that they wouldn't spread the disease because half of them have COVID. And he put an executive order and Biden fought it. There's a cartoon out this morning that talks about the typical Democratic sign, defund police, but they crossed out the DE. So now they want to fund the police. There's no police available. Nobody wants to be a policeman in this day and age. And the last one that I saw, cities are begging for policemen. Bottom line, does anyone here think we are not at war against Marxism? We are absolutely at war. And what do you need when you go to war? You need someone tough, strong to make the tough decisions. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I served 22 years in the military. I worked for 4 cities and a county, and I was a town manager. I also ran the logistics for the Reagan ballistic missile test site out in Kwajalein for our defense program.
Thank you, Tom.
I'm Tom Heck. I'm running for governor in the state. You need someone tough. See thomasheck.org. And if you cannot, call me and I'll answer your questions directly.
All the candidates will be here. You can talk to them afterward, including Michael Jack or anybody that's running for state offices, too. Next candidate.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Fred Simon. I'm a trauma surgeon, medical legal expert across the country. I've worked in a COVID ICU and still do. I own a restaurant down in Douglas County and Minden. Our pillars are school choice. We need to improve health care, security within communities, and voter ID. Big time. I've had a lot of experience in my career over multiple states and multiple occupations. I think I can bring a lot to the governor's position, and I think we can connect it all together so that we can have a very safe state that's organized, better education, raise our kids with the better values. And I think the problem that's happened over the last few years is our values have been marginalized, deteriorated, and the Democrats are destroying this country.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Jackson, and I'm representing Joey Gilbert. A lot of politicians will stand up here and say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make this happen. Well, here's the bottom line. Joey Gilbert's been doing it, and he's been doing it for years. He's been fighting for this state against a governor that really should be gone. And what's Joey been doing? He opened up. He used legal tactics and the courts to open up 8 counties in this state. Nobody else did that. Everybody else sat on the sidelines. He has helped counties. He has helped people. He's helped individuals. There's people in this room I know who have called upon Joey because their business was being closed because of some kind of mask mandate or because they weren't enforcing the rules. And Joey stepped up. He stepped up every single time. Joey Gilbert's the guy for us. He's the guy for me. He's the guy for you. He's the one that's going to protect this state. He's the one that's actually going to get some things done. So be like me and vote for Joey Gilbert for governor. Thank you.
Good morning, fellow Republicans. My name is Mickey Lufkin. I was born in Alameda, California, September 20th, 1945. I was gifted with a 160 genius IQ and an amazing ability to play the violin. I majored in music in San Francisco State College. I was there during the Black Panthers and all of that stuff, and Nancy Pelosi and others who were in that same city. I moved here in 1984. I taught school. I played in the symphony, and from 1989 to 1996, I didn't do it, but God did it through me. We took over 7,000 people off these streets into housing and into jobs. #1 in the nation. We know we have these problems here. We know we have problems in Carson City. It doesn't do any good to keep talking about other people. We need to be civil about it. We are Republicans. We know what we're here for, and I want to be the best governor that you've ever had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mickey. Hello, I'm Cameron Hawkins, and I just want to say, hey, look at all these people here. So a little round of applause for Red Move Nevada. All right. Okay, good. Okay, I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. Who in here owns a firearm? Who in Nevada owns a firearm? Well, then you're my brothers and sisters. We do so many gun shows in this state and rodeo, and doing it for years. To be exact, I want to invite, we have an all-Republican golf tournament happening up in Genoa. And if anyone's read our Leaders and Candidates.com magazine, this was the only publishing that we actually published in the state of Nevada ever in the history, where actually every candidate that ran last term, we actually did this, sent it to 1.6 million people around the world. We've got some back there. And Mackenzie, if you would stand up, she's one of our golf sponsors, a young entrepreneur, business owner, thank you. Corey, if you'd stand up, another campaign manager for us, fantastic fireman as well. Where is Robin back there? Robin's making things happen. Oh, yeah, there she is, all country. Well, once again, I'm Cameron Hawkins. I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. I'm happy that you're here, and I'm happy to talk to you. Thank you. Secretary of State, right? There you go.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm T. Tran. I'm representing Mr. Christopher Dare for Secretary of State. He is currently a Sparks councilman, and he's also involved in our Nevada League of Cities and our National League of Cities. So if you guys are looking for a candidate who understands how to work in partnership with governments, especially at all levels, the local and the state, we really, really need your support. I truly believe that Christopher is the person that can bring some clarity and transparency to this office. There are too many questions that are happening right now with what's going on with Secretary of State and what the process is. And I will tell you, if you are looking for someone who has some integrity and asks the right questions, watch Christopher during a Sparks City Council meeting. You can see him in action right now and how he actually leads in our community. So thank you all. If you have any questions, I'm T.
Just a quick reminder, if you're not eating or drinking, always have water. You have to have your mask on. They already checked this once. So please, they're not necessarily promoting it, but the Grand Sierra got fined the last time $50,000, and I'm sure John Ferrari isn't going to be wanting to get fined.
Sounds like it's going to be a good year for Republicans.
Hold on.
If these guys are finding
the
our
next
business,
thing that we're going to do is all of you come, you can talk to the candidates. Some of them brought literature. And now we're ready for the keynote speakers. That's going to be what happened at the assembly. And I'll have them go up to the table there, and then they can stand up and talk.
well, Ray, if the keynote speakers just come up, if they want to use the podium, they can use the podium. Just come up directly to the podium. You introduce them. And again, the best lighting is right here. I just want to mention one last thing. Hey, candidates, great job. I didn't mention how to wear it. This is a Shure microphone. You want it about 2 inches from your mouth when you're talking in front of groups. Worst thing that can happen is a candidate. So presentation is really good. Be strong. Republicans are going to win. Hey, one thought too, the hospitality industry, the businesses, I can't imagine any Democrats getting elected after what they're doing to the businesses in Nevada right now, especially like this stuff right here. Oregon does not, I was just in Oregon 2 days ago, it doesn't have a mask mandate at all.
With that in mind, let's have the candidates go up. or one at a time. The first one probably be Dr. Titus, the minority assembly leader, Robin Titus from, what is it? Smith Valley. Okay.
Thank you,
We'll
Robin.
do one at a time. By the way, after they're done, approximately 10-minute speeches, we'll have it open for Q&A. But when you do Q&A, and I'm very strict on this, ask questions, no diatribe, or I'll stop you right in the middle.
All right, well, I think we're on, so thank you. Traditionally, I'd be out in the middle of the floor, standing where Bob is right now, being pretty emphatic and doing a pretty good rah-rah to get you all engaged. But I was asked to do a summary of this past legislative session. And so with that in mind, I actually wrote some information down with some bill numbers and statistics so that we can make sure we get things accurate and I can cover all the topics, because in 10 minutes, it's hard to cover a session in 10 minutes. And so since that's what we were asked to do, that's what I'm going to stick to. So first, thank you for being here today, a new organization showing some enthusiasm for Republican values and beliefs and not giving up. We're getting kind of hammered out there. So by being involved and at grassroots, that's the key to changing things. That's the key to changing the policy in our state and in our nation. And you're engaged and you're active, and that's a start. So thank you, and thank you for all the folks who got this going today. It was my honor to serve as the Assembly Minority Leader, Assembly Republican Caucus Leader in the 81st legislative session, as well as in the past cycle. During the 81st session, it's no surprise to any of you here that the Democrats continue to show an unprecedented disregard for tradition and bipartisanship and what was best for the state, not what was best for their national agenda. So, and they ignored that. They took the national agenda over anything we did that we needed to do for our state. The Democrats passed only 26% of our Republican bills, and it was even worse on the Senate side. As you already witnessed, a one-party controlled system makes for bad policy, and nothing good comes out of it, and families in Nevada are left behind. That's why I'm happy to see the candidates here today. I'm happy to see the people willing to come up and serve, because you never get it. It's a thankless job, and to have folks willing to take on that challenge, we're feeling energized. And I know Assemblyman PK and I are just always looking for good candidates, wanting to make sure we continue to keep our assembly members' seats and maybe gain some. So, as you've heard me say before, the Democrats are in their second cycle with a government-controlled trifecta. Think about that. There's no checks and balances. Even when we were in the minority and the 80th session, or 79th session, we still had a Republican governor that could veto over 50 bills he vetoed. This last two cycles, there was no checks and balances. And as you know, Assembly Republicans began the session focusing on, we thought we were going to focus on our budget and how we were going to control the state and recover from the pandemic, and our governor's prolonged shutdown, and that ruined our economy. But that's not what happened. We know that with our complete shutdown, the unemployment was crazy. Fraud actually, and still is happening. We had 1.9 unemployment claims, despite the entire Nevada workforce only being 1.4 million people. What happened in our state was a disaster. So we had 1.9 million people apply for unemployment, but we only had 1.4 million people employed in our state. Imagine. So today we are still at the bottom of the country at 49th place. Our unemployment rebound has been second worst in the entire nation, and that is not acceptable. Instead of addressing these issues, the session morphed into an ultra partisanship with national priorities that became the most progressive and partisan in modern history. Folks, this Democrat administration used Nevada as a template to see what could possibly pass on a national agenda. The Democrat-controlled legislature locked out lobbyists and the public, impairing the quality of the legislation, as you well know, restricting input and accountability and the proper vetting of policies. Democrats spent more time trying to repeal the death penalty than fixing Dieter's inability to send people their check and people who involuntarily lost their jobs because of this governor shutdown. They spent more time making sure prisoners were paid $15 an hour than making sure our schools could open up safely. Progressive interest and unions and liberal national priorities were the focus for the majority party. Even a bill passed giving the annual state employees cost of living increase only to union-paying employees. This would be beyond the pale at a time when Democrat policies have skyrocketed inflation and the price of goods and services. I sit on the Money Committee. I sit on the Ways and Means Committee. During the hearing, when we had to vote to approve that pay increase, and we questioned why all state employees weren't getting a raise, and only the unions did, Maggie Carlton, the chair of Ways and Means, said that non-union employees in the state were quote-unquote freeloaders. She called non-union members freeloaders on the mic. And when we said, well, if we could afford to give this to state employees, why aren't we giving all state employees a raise? Because those who aren't non-union members are freeloaders. It's like, holy mackerel, so they're forced to join the unions. It was beyond comprehensive. So massive policy bills with far-reaching implications were not introduced until the final hours of the session, including a massive energy bill, mining deal bill, and the socialized medicine public option that would prevent providers from out of state coming. Assembly Republicans, we introduced numerous common sense pieces of legislation to fix some of this, to fix the doctor shortage and nurses shortage, but all were killed without even a fair hearing. We are still ranked 49th in the nation for nurses per capita. And the only opposition to common sense, the thing to solve this would have been a common sense nurses compact that Assemblyman P.K. O'Neill introduced, and I helped co-sponsor. Who made that not even get a hearing? Nurses unions. While the number of licensed physicians in the state has increased over a decade, Nevada still ranks 45th for active physicians practicing here and 50th for general surgeons. Many of the Democrat bills just reflected, as I've already said, their national agenda. They also introduced over 110 bills that were identified as anti-business. Our caucus stood as strong as we possibly could, killing, and they knew that we would vote no on two-thirds bills. That's the only checks and balances we had. So they pulled back 12 of those bills that were two-thirds bills that they knew we would block, took out the fee increase, but passed the policy already, which we couldn't block. We also stood strong against the gun bill, AB 286. We blocked that through a lot of testimony from the Congressional Sports Foundation, the NRA, and it became basically a policy where already was going to be on a national agenda on, as we would say, the ghost guns, which I still don't agree with that policy. However, compared to what it was initially, oh my God, it was terrible. We gutted it, they sent it back over, and then at the end of the day, they sent it back to us trying to pass it again. That was killed. We stopped the repetitive pattern of Democrats using a government-controlled trifecta to drop those bills at the last minute without any scrutiny. That was just crazy. We were successful in a big thing, and hopefully Assemblyman O'Neill will discuss it, the innovation zones. We all know that there might be a special session over the innovation zones. Hopefully PK, he's a person I recommended to Minority Leader got one representative on the Innovation Zones Committee. And I appointed PK to that, so hopefully he has an update. What was shocking about the innovation zones was that Senator Settlemeyer and I didn't even know anything about innovation zones until the governor released his State of the State address. But that didn't stop him from trying to push and ram that bill through, but he knew it was a two-thirds bill and that we would block it. So he made it just a study, and we could not block a study. I'm going to always fight for business and rural Nevada, but it has to be smart. Growth has to be smart. We have to include. My question was, why would they need their own form of government? And so we'll see what happens with that. I want accountability in our government. So we'll see if we have a special session. If anyone saw the Record Courier article just last week, Senator Settlemeyer and I renewed our calls for this governor's limited powers, this single branch of government, mandating that we wear masks again. I'm a medical doctor. I've been a county health officer for Lyon County for almost 40 years. I've read the studies. I've read the New England Journal of Medicine studies. They're not giving you some of that stuff, that we are protected. I had the vaccine. Many of you may or may not have had the vaccine. It's all self-determination in my mind. We're protected. So to put us, a healthy person, requiring a mask is beyond absurd. As leader, I was allowed to introduce one emergency bill. My bill that never got a hearing was AB 373. In my mind, the governor should have 15 days with an emergency, and then after that, he should reach out. The health experts in the counties should say what's right for their county, not allow him to continue on and on and on. We had election integrity bills that were introduced. The Democrats never heard a single one of our election integrity bills. Horrible. They didn't give it a single hearing. Instead, they passed their legislation without a single Republican support. No voter bill should ever pass without bipartisan support. It's over the top. So at the time when the governor has drained our rainy day fund, he has the audacity to pass his bill, AB 321, universal mail ballots, which will cost Nevada $13 million for this midterm 2022 midterm election alone. AB 4 ever, as I say, was in the midterm elections or in the special session, that's the mail-in ballot, did increase voter turnout or votes, but it did not do it as they said it did in the past. We actually had a higher voting in-person record in the cycles in the 80s and 90s than we did with this one. Most of them were ended up in the gutter. So after this session, one thing is abundantly clear. We've got to have more Republicans. We must win back those levers of government to kind of right this ship a little bit. You guys being here today, these candidates being here today, gives me hope that this next election cycle, not only we're going to keep our seats, but we're going to pick up some. And it's going to take everybody in this room, multiply that exponentially to get this done. So thank you for your efforts. Thank you for this, and looking forward to hearing what everybody else has to say. Thank you very much.
Next person up is P.K. O'Neill. He'll tell you the District 40 representing. And by the way, what you just said is more reason we've got to get more Republicans in the Assembly and the Senate. So get off your tushes and start participating. Don't just talk about it.
I'm P.K. O'Neill, Assembly District 40, which covers all of Carson City and the southeast part of Washoe County and part of the city of Reno. I want to thank you all for having me here today. I think I'm given 10 minutes, but after what our minority leader said, she really covered it all. I was amazed how much she covered in that 10 minutes. I can do it better, though. I can give you the summary of the 81st legislative session. It stunk. It was awful. It was criminal. It should never have occurred. My belief is the next session, you're going to hear the majority of the bills introduced this way. We always introduce ourselves. I am so-and-so. I'm here today to present Assembly Bill XYZ to the committee. This is a cleanup bill from the mistakes we made in 2021. And the only way we can get that done is exactly what Robin said, what you've heard from all the candidates, what you're going to hear over and over again. We've got to break the trifecta. We have got to get a Republican governor. Please give me a Republican Secretary of State. Actually, please give me Republicans all the way down the line. I mean, I go to church every Sunday. It's part of my prayers. I ask you, but it can only be done. I always say hope is nothing but a 4-letter word unless you have a plan. And it's meetings like this, it's what you do in your various clubs, what Sandy does, what Ray does, what Scott does down in Carson City is the plan to make that hope successful. So that's my plea to you all, and ask you to continue marching forward, support your candidates. We've got an excellent list of candidates coming out. That you've already heard some of them here today. There's more of them that you'll hear over the next several months. That's what we've got to do. But getting back to the 81st session, Robin was kind enough, I don't know what I did to upset her, to get me assigned to the Innovation Zone Committee. Because I got to be honest, I try to keep an open mind. And I was a cop for 40 years. You always hate to go in saying it's so-and-so. Collect the evidence first, listen, and then make decisions on where it leads you. I was on the State Ethics Commission for 4 years, the same thing. Try to listen as a judge, listen to the facts, then make the decisions. I admit it to Robin, to anybody, that I'm a little predisposed to the stupidity of an innovation zone forming a government, a county, I don't care what you call it, a county within a county. I don't think it's constitutional, it's not appropriate. If you can't make business work in Story County, you can't make business work anywhere, is my belief. So you just look at what they've done with the Tahoe Regional Industrial Complex there. They can make it work, so there's no need. But here's the funny thing about this committee that I got assigned to. We're having our first meeting on the 12th of August. I think that's a week from today, or thereabouts. The agenda isn't even out yet. We know who the members are. There's 6 of us, 4 Democrats and 2 Republicans, myself and Senator Settlemyre. But the agenda, what is going to be discussed, who's presenting, isn't even out yet. They don't even know, when I say they, the Democrats are in control, don't even know what they're going to have for this innovation zone. What is the discussion going to be? So it makes it really tough for me to prepare, to read the material in advance. Then, here's what really kills me. The governor and I think it's the state controller went on this statewide hearing. We want to hear from how we should spend money and create programs with one-shot money. That makes sense? No. If you create a program with one shot, how are you going to continue the program? So he's out going around to have all these in-person meetings, but a legislative meeting has already, they've decided that it can't be held in person. We're going to do it Zoom again. And probably most of you, I know Paul particularly, knows the frustration of Zoom meetings. Can you hear me now? Hello? Am I there? You're given 2 minutes. The first minute and a half is, hello? Hello? The inconsistency of what we are experiencing right now. How do you have a legitimate meeting when you have A, no material out, B, it's going to be Zoom. I'm going to the luckily, or fortunately, I live in Carson City, which I got to be honest with you, due respects to Reno, I think is one of the greatest towns in this country. Been there 40 years. I love it. Everything is there. If we could build an airport, I would probably half the time never come to Reno. I've got Costco. What else do I need? But seriously speaking, I'm fortunate enough to live there. I'm going into my office. I'm going to go to the committee room where allegedly this meeting is supposed to take place. And if it's locked, I will stay in my office and conduct my business where I am supposed to conduct our business in the people's house, which is basically the people are locked out of by this ridiculous, inconsistent, on-again, off-again process of what can and can't be done. And as I use the example, the governor can go out and have all these in-person meetings, but the legislature can't. The governor, we have the separation of powers. Robin was absolutely right. You got to control, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, there has to be checks and balances within there. We had the bill in, they refused to even hear it. The Democrats, and I'll wrap up quickly, the Democrats talk about how they care about people and they're all there for the people. Robin said it. We had several bills, 2 of them were mine, that dealt with public health issues and improving our public health deliveries to people out in the rurals, in the locals, the large cities, etc. Can't even give a hearing to them. And it was basically because the unions were afraid the nurses' bill would be a strike buster, which it isn't. And we even sat down with them, we gave them some concessions about it. Still won't do it. They like to see Nevada, they like to see the people of Nevada be dependent upon the government, upon the unions. I believe in self-responsibility, limited government, which we have exceeded beyond expectations to a ridiculous level. So when we'll, over the next year and a half, let's get sensibility back. Let's get Republicans in there. Give me Republicans all the way up and down the line. We have an excellent chance to take the governors, to take I call them the constitutional officers, the Attorney General's office, Secretary of State, Controller, Treasurer. The Senate should be back in the red, and we'll work on the Assembly side. That is what this state needs. I'm being told you're dead. I'm out. I just want to thank you again for having me here. I really do appreciate it. PK O'Neill, Assembly District 40, for those of you that lived in Carson and Southeast Washoe, please remember me. I'm going to need your help because there will be a Democrat against me again. So thank you all very much for having me. Enjoy your meal. And Joe, it's all yours now.
PK said he wouldn't have anything to say after Robin. Well, you know better from a politician. Joe Weaver.
Everybody hear me okay? We're good. Hey, everybody, my name's Joe. I'm the state director for the Democratic Socialists for America. Just kidding. I was making sure you're all awake. Please don't throw your blueberry muffins at me. Well, it's good to be here. I'm sure a lot of you remember me from last time. I was the state director last year for Donald J. Trump for president in the state. I'm now back on the national committee side to make sure that we can take back our assembly, our Senate, get rid of Governor Sisolak, and get rid of Catherine Cortez Masto, and that's why you're all here today. So thank you all for being here. A little bit about myself. I am a Nevada native. I actually went to Carson High School, graduated in 2009, went to UNR. Now I'm stuck down there in Vegas with all the rebels. It's as bad as you think. But it's always good to be back in my home state, so thank you guys for having me. What's the RNC up to? A lot of people want to talk about, when we win things, it's a collective, and the only way that we can really win is by having some sort of a stable structure. And that structure to us has to be our cooperation with the Republican National Committee, you guys, and the Nevada Republican Party. A couple things I want to talk about is a little bit of national stuff. Ray wanted me to touch base a little bit on the legislature, and there's only a couple things that really do affect us. That they didn't already cover. They did a very good job, so thank you, Assemblywomen and Assemblymen. But really, ironically enough, Politico did an article yesterday. Did any of you guys see the article about the new poll that the DCCC is? Do you guys know what the DCCC is? The Democratic Congressional Committee. So the Democratic Congressional Committee did their first poll of the 2022 election. And guess what happened? They're underperforming where they were 6 months ago by over 6 points. If the election was held today, we would take back 53 seats in Congress. That's not including redistricting. That's what people are seeing with these tides and these changes, these lockdowns, these mandates, the overstepping that we see on a federal level, the disaster of a White House that we see now, who can't even put together a sentence, really is coming to fruition. And the only way that we can do that is by being active and being here locally. What are some of the things that we do? Obviously, with how important this election is going to be and redistricting coming up, it's really about how we can effectively win back seats. And a lot of you guys were involved last time with our offices and stuff that we had around the state. We had our office on 4th Street last year. Thank you guys for helping us out with that if you were there. It's really about how we can help win. So the one big thing that the RNC does is provide a data structure. So our data set since 2010, we kind of redeveloped. You know, we used to go in and you had your bubble sheets and you'd fill them out and you'd bring them in and you'd copy them up. But with the change in social media, Facebook, everybody's information is this much quicker now. So for us, you had to take a step back after we lost in 2012 and say, how can we be better? And the way that we could be better is by doing what's new and aged with the businesses. So what we basically did was build an entire database structure, a continual structure based on what we call as a score. And everybody in this room, everybody in the country to us has some sort of a voter score. And what that means is it's a two-pronged thing. It's prescriptive and it's descriptive. Descriptive says you're a registered Republican, you voted in the last 4 elections. Cool, anybody can get that information. The second and the most important is the prescriptive. It's very, very similar to a business model. Basically anything that's consumer information and anything that you do on the internet, if you haven't looked at your phone lately, or if you haven't said the word pizza and gotten an email about pizza, it's all part of it now. And the way that we utilize it is, we'll say, someone like me, we say, okay, it's like a giant Plinko board, essentially. There's a bunch of little pegs with different data and information, and the way that we cognitively pull that together is based on your trends. So we say, okay, I'm a Republican, I'm a registered Republican, and my percentage is 80 because I'm an NRA member. I drive a Toyota Tacoma, but I also have a newspaper subscription to the Washington Post. And it kind of moves around and around and around. So what that allows us to do is to understand the best way to target voters. And how we do that is based on whatever our candidates and that our election department wants to do. So for us, it's more so on the targeted side. So when we go to candidates and candidates come to us, we say, okay, who do we want to talk to? I'm 80% Republican and I'm 80% likely to vote. Should we, in an election cycle, talk to me? What do you guys think? No, you're right. You've heard me say this before. No, because I'm 80% likely to vote and I'm a Republican. But if I was an 80% Republican and only 30% likely to vote, that's a problem. That's when we start to focus on turnout. So our data infrastructure, best estimates now is about $750 million worth of structure, and we offer that to all of our candidates. That's standardized mailing lists. If you tell me like, hey, I'm running for office, I want a list of the veterans in my area, or I want a list of anybody with a child in the household that is an independent voter that has some sort of Republican leaning. And we were able to provide that information. So candidates come and see me afterwards. We'll make sure that we can help you guys get on that. Second is candidate support. And I think the one thing that we see now with the Nevada Republican Party is we've really kind of taken a step to being more proactive in helping candidates. We now offer, and the Nevada Republican Party now offer a candidate school and a candidate college. The second one starts on Saturday. So candidates, if you want to get involved, it's a really, really great program to help empower and engage people into becoming more active into running for office. Like Assemblywoman Titus said, we do need to have a lot more Republicans elected in this state. We still have redistricting coming later this year, from my understanding, and it's up to us to be able to make a difference. Second thing, what we're going to be focusing on is coalitions. So in 2020, we made exponential gains in the coalitions department. Donald J. Trump overperformed in the minority communities with numbers we hadn't seen since Nixon. In the state alone, we got 43% of the Latino male vote, 36% of the African American male vote. We increased our vote shares in Latino, Hispanic, and Asian Americans by over 8% across the board. And that's really a quintessential part of what we do. So our organization is going to be focusing heavily on how can we be more proactive in the community, opening community centers in Las Vegas and the surrounding areas in those communities, being more engaged in those cultural events and stuff like that to make sure that people know that the Republican Party and what we stand for is akin to their culture. And that's a big, big, big thing for us. And then the third thing that we're going to be really focusing on is election integrity. So I know everybody in this room, myself included, 2020 sucked on the top of the ticket. A lot of bad stuff happened. There was problems all over the country. And the only way that we're able to fix that, and our elected officials know this, is by electing and getting more Republicans elected to change the laws. 90 days before the election, they made the mail ballots a thing again and ballot harvesting legal. It used to be a Category E felony here to ballot harvest. And now all of a sudden, 90 days before the election, we get to ballot harvest and they get to ballot harvest and everything got really messy. So we're going to have an election integrity team really, really putting a hyper focus on how we can take the energy of folks who are upset about the election and turning that into action. We need more poll watchers. We need eyes on the process. We need to be able to hold our elected officials accountable. And that's exactly what at the RNC wants to focus on this time around. And then lastly, voter registration. A lot of people don't know, and they want to blame the state or they want to blame Republicans for our losses over the last 6 or 7 years. But really people don't understand that Obama for America played a big part in Nevada in 2010 and 2012 after the first presidential election, 2008 for him. Between him and Tom Steyer, they registered over 110,000 Democrats in our state. We've been losing by 33, 27, 48. So voter registration is going to be key. So make sure you get with your local party, the Washoe County Republican Party, us, Nevada Republican Party, and do our part on voter registration. So with that, it's just kind of the basic structure. We're going to take some questions after this, but I do appreciate Ray for having me. We hope that you guys are involved. We need to take back this state. We need checks and balances. We know what's happening now with Democrats in power, and the only way that we can do that is if everybody in this room does their part. We only lost this state in 2020 by 17 votes per precinct. What time? That's it. If everybody in this room registered 17 new Republicans in their neighborhood, we win. So thank you all for having me. Looking forward to the panel.
Thank you. All right, we're going to do Q&A right now. And if you have a question, we're going to move the mic over here. Joe, if you could help. Oh, you're right here. Anyway. No, if you have, yeah. Oh, well, whatever is comfortable. Yeah. To ask questions, come up to the mic. And remember, question, not diatribes. So who's going to be the first to start asking questions? Did I scare everybody off?
I have a question. I asked this earlier. Take off the mask when you talk. So I have a question. You each get to answer this. What's the worst thing the Democrats did in Nevada last year? The worst thing. You each have a.
I'll go first since I have the mic. I really do think it was that bill, that late bill with mail-in voting, just completely disenfranchised voters. People didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they were still going to get sick with COVID. I think that bill really was the detrimental thing to us, and the worst thing that they could have done was to change laws at midnight in a special session to change things and to really kind of disenfranchise people. I don't think it was right. I don't think it was ethical, and I think it needs to be changed.
So I'll piggyback on that. What Joe referred to was AB 4 during the special session that was passed in the middle of the night. And so it actually had a hearing introduced on one day on July 28th and was passed and signed by the governor 5 days later with very little, middle of the night type of hearing. This last session, I would say the worst thing continues to be AB 4 ever, which was introduced at the last minute. Because if we don't have confidence in the integrity of our election system, that's the hallmark of what America is about. I think that we believe strongly that one person, one vote, that we trust, that there's not typically rioting after a vote because whether we liked it or not, that the vote happens, not this last cycle. And when you lose belief that your vote counts, by far people won't show up anymore. And we have to pull that back in. So absolutely, voting integrity, the bill that was passed, Speaker Frierson's bill, passed and signed, all mail-in ballots, was the worst thing that happened to Nevada in my mind. And there's a litany of things. Believe me, I could go on that. But the worst was the voting.
I'm going to change it because I agree that's the worst thing they did. The worst thing they didn't do, I'll flip it, was they didn't hear the bills to address the voting that we had, that you submitted, and also to limit the governor's powers to be reviewed by the legislators. So it's sins of omission and commission would be the answer for that.
Next person asking, Diane.
Good morning. I understand the fact that we need to go out and try to register more Republicans. Is there a program out there to get nonpartisans and independents to register as Republicans?
Joe, I'm going to give it to you, but I'm going to say Scott Our chair, Dan Carson, already has a plan too, and is willing to work with the other committees to get that out, and with Joe. But yeah, we have it. So Joe, it's yours.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot to bring that up in my speech. One thing that did change too is automatic voter registration, motor voter at the DMV. We used to be an opt-in at the DMV to register to vote. Now it's opt-out, and it's automatically registered as unaffiliated. So the thing that's different is with motor voter, is what it's called, or automatic voter registration, we saw an increase of over 180,000 unaffiliated voters in 2 years, in 2019 and 2020. And that's a huge thing, especially with our closed primary system. So yeah, so with our infrastructure, with our data, we're able to basically take the change of address, the national change of address, and be able to compare that to that data that I was talking about. So that way we can upload it into our system and say, okay, who lives in Carson City, Washoe, wherever now, that was a registered Republican in California, Utah, Idaho, wherever, that's in there. And then who are the independent voters that are getting automatically registered, but we see something in their file that's, they are an NRA member, or they've donated to a Republican candidate, not the ones that donate to NPR and donate to Planned Parenthood, stuff like that. So we've actually started to implement a system through the Nevada Republican Party with a new mover program. Scott's kind of our test subject up north, and using our system and our data system to be able to identify those voters, use the committees and use the counties to go to those houses and welcome them to the neighborhood and get them to change. We are a closed primary state, so we're encouraging people that if you want to take place in the Republican or the Democratic primary, that you need to be registered by party. So yes, there is a subject implemented, and that's kind of our meaning behind it.
And I'm just going to end with a caveat also that we are rapidly becoming the third party in the state because of the increased registration of the nonpartisans. And that is purposely happening at the DMV, and so we have to stay on top of that because the Republicans are now going to rapidly be a third party in the state.
Hey guys, thanks for coming, and thanks for the speeches and letting us know what's going on. One thing, obviously, the mail-out ballots are happening. What can we do to force the registrars to clean up the voter rolls? Dead people and out-of-state registrars.
So we did clean, the Secretary of State's bill did pass, which was one of the good things that passed, that requires that the Secretary of State, so it's a top-down now as opposed to bottom-up, where they clean up those rolls, and that's a positive thing that happened. So there's going to be some checks and balances in that that are really important to clean up the rolls. The other one thing that the speaker did say when he said, well, because I would call him and say, your ballot bill and all those things, how bad that was, and he was trying to get some Republican support on that. One thing that he did accept, what was a bill of Melissa Hardy's, Assemblyman Hardy's and mine, was that you actually, to clean up the dead voter rolls and how quick that has to happen, because right now, when somebody dies, you immediately notify the Secretary of State. Well, as a doctor, when somebody dies, I have to go online and have so many hours, days to sign that death certificate, and then it immediately is notified, and we're mandated to do that. And why can't we make sure our county clerks know when somebody dies within 48 hours too, so they can clean up that voter roll? So cleaning up those voter rolls was something that the speaker put in one little paragraph in that bill, and then that top-down cleaning of the voter rolls by the Secretary of State. So I think those are good things we could check. So we're working on that, and unfortunately there's so much more we need to do, but that was a start. And we're going to stay vigilant. Believe me, we're going to stay vigilant. I actually personally went down to our county. I'm from Smith Valley, didn't really say that, which is, I had to get up and leave my home at 6 o'clock this morning to get here today. It's south of where PK is, south of Minden, Gardnerville, where that fire was just on, and I would only let me get started about the Forest Service and fires, but it's south of here. And I went down to my county clerk, and I watched how that balloting process, I watched the ballots come in, I watched what they did with them, and Lyon County, which is the county I live in, actually did a relatively decent job. But it's all about us all staying engaged and holding people accountable. Well, I think, again, holding people accountable, getting down to, it really starts more with your clerks than it does anything else. You actually had a bill in that they didn't, again, here, that all registers, / clerks had to be elected. because you know the Clark County one is appointed. So who is he going to follow? He's going to follow what their county commissioners who appoint him say, right? Not the voters. And so, of course, they didn't hear that bill either.
No. I'd like you to comment, and I think it would probably be you, Dr. Titus, and maybe PK, but on the CRT bill that got passed. And I just want to do a shout out to a man who fights it by himself and gets abused all the time, Jeff Church, here in the Washoe County. He just, we want to encourage him to stay on, and we're going to join it. But that aside, I believe this is a real, outside of the issues we've just talked about, right. The CRT, and I forget the number of that bill, that's going to be devastating unless we fight it. But if you could just comment on it. And again, and I thank you guys for what you're doing.
Clarify to me the CRT and CRT.
I'm sorry, it's critical
I
race.
I actually brought a copy of that. I have a bill number. I came prepared. Hold on. Mind you, there's 1,000 bills that were out there, but this whole critical race theory, and I apologize for the blank look.
This is destroying our young people,
so
and it's a Marxist bill.
Interestingly enough, the CRT thing was Assembly Bill 261. So if you want to look it up, so you can actually get some details, because when you go to a school board meeting, they'll say, and you'll say, we don't want that critical race theory, et cetera. They say, no, we've never taught that. That's not what we're doing here. But there's a lot of undertones of what changing the whole history of America on what happened. I'm not proud of what happened always in the United States and what we did here in America, but we can't deny that it happened, right? So if you don't learn from your history, you're destined to repeat it, right? So why would we ignore that some of these things may have happened? So anyway, when you want to do your own homework, it was AB 261, introduced by Assemblywomen Anderson, Miller, and Considine. Anderson is in northern Nevada, by the way, so pay attention to that. And it was an act relating to education requiring the Board of Trustees of a school district or the governing body of a charter school to ensure that instructions provided to certain pupils on the history and contributions of certain groups of persons, materials by the State Board of Education, and providing other matters properly related. And this is K through 12. Now that's great. I mean, I think we should make sure that the books are written that include what happened and that all people contributed and all of that. I am absolutely for that. But when they use that to say that everything is inherently racist in the United States, which is where they then go with that, that's where we all have to have pushback. And that's where a parent has to stay engaged. They have to look at what their kid is bringing home. And then you show up there and say, well, wait a minute here. And so it's a huge issue. It was passed in the Assembly on April 15th. All Republicans voted no, so it went 26-16, and it passed out of the Senate May 21st. All the Republicans went no. Nobody heard about this bill. Nothing got publicized, and there was really very little hearing on what was really in this bill.
It's difficult to try to defend a bill that's absolutely asinine. I just got to say this. Part of the argument they kept saying was just what Robin said, was the inherent discrimination by our government, by everybody here, by businesses, etc., and that there are individuals that have no chance of ever succeeding. And as I look around the assembly to that 42 individuals, I go, they're talking about him, her, him. They got scholarships, and if you don't mind, Senator Washington. How do these people succeed if we automatically beat every single one down? So I've got to admit, maybe I'm the root of all evil. I'm a white male. And I was born in Virginia. But I have looked and support the individuals, this country, the Irish, boy, look at the Chinese, particularly here in Nevada. If you want to talk about discrimination, they didn't get any handouts. They have succeeded. There are opportunities if you take advantage of them. That's what we both as Assembly and as you as citizens and on the schools need to show and make sure that people are aware of. There are opportunities out there every single day. Hell, even Paul comes from some foreign country, and although he can't afford a razor, he succeeds. But anyway, that's enough of that. It was asinine. You can see by the vote. It's part of what the progressive and what was said earlier. They're trying to make Nevada the microcosm, the test for the rest of the country.
We're going to limit it to 2 more questions.
He's got a Biden hat on.
Wanted to thank Ninja for helping us in the front. He's with the Washoe Republican Assembly, representing that group that meets the first Tuesday of every month.
I can't resist to say this, but we're training Washoe Republican Assembly to do the same thing we're doing here.
Yeah, and my name's Ken Giotto. So my question is regarding the Marxist spread in here in Nevada, and I just want to get your opinion on the. So the Democratic Party, from what I see, has been taken over by the Democratic Socialists of America, which is a Marxist organization, and just get your opinion on that because basically, from what I read. If the Democratic Party has been taken over, then the state has been taken over by Marxists. And the other thing is the Democratic Socialists of America have placed an office in Reno and in a secretive manner. And they are hiding out at wells and infiltrating anything that they can get into. I'm trying to spread the word on that. And that's the question, is your view on that.
It's the greatest opportunity we have. If we can't beat a socialist party in this state, particularly in Nevada, we were founded by hardworking miners, cattlemen, even sheep herders. It was self-support. They stood at their ground. They stood for themselves. If you can't beat a socialist, if we can't get Republicans and just show the people what they're voting for when they hit that D button, then God help us, is the only thing I can say. So in answer to your question, I think it's a great opportunity for us to succeed. That's the way I look at it. It's a very clear distinction between the two parties and where we want our state and our country to go.
Well, I think it's a great question, and those of you who know me know that I quote Voltaire all the time. And so Voltaire was a French politician, French philosopher who said that I may not agree with what you're saying, but I die with your right to say it. So they can certainly be who they are. They can certainly have their agenda because it is America, and they have a right to say that. However, it's our job to recruit more people and I'm not endorsing any gubernatorial candidate, so I'm just using Mayor John Lee as an example who says, hey, I'm not part of this party anymore, I'm going to join the Republicans. So we need to do a better job, we Republicans, of standing up, showing folks that we do need them to help, that we can accept what they thought, even if you don't agree exactly as I do. We need to make sure we're gaining people who are hard workers, who have a business, who, these young folks who suddenly get a job afterwards and go, why am I paying those taxes on that? Suddenly figure that out. All the small business owners, oh my goodness, the people who have emigrated to this state legally, who set up these mom and pop shops, this country was founded on small businesses. We need to reach out to those folks who were Democrats in the past, and as misguided as that is, and recognize the real party to belong to is the Republican Party. Limited government, limited taxes, and ability to be whoever you want to in this state. And those are the folks we need to reach out to.
Keep it short.
They cover pretty much everything that I'm thinking about. I think we're finally at this reckoning point where they're showing their true colors. They're not hiding behind any masks anymore of being the party of the people. They're actively electing Democratic Socialists to state legislative offices, and they're electing Democratic activists to the Assembly. I think we're finally at that point where I think a lot of Nevadans really understand, and even in 2020, we won back 3 seats in our Assembly, 1 in the Senate, took over the Nevada Supreme Court. Nevadans don't like that agenda, and they're just the loudest. So don't let them be the loudest. We need to be louder, and this is the time when I think everybody's going to really see this is their true colors. This is what goes on when Democrats have the White House, and Nevada is struggling now more than ever, and I think we're at a reckoning point.
Hold on. Okay, we have one more question. Keep the answers short. Your question.
This is for PK O'Neill. I'm very concerned about these innovation zones and their desire to use Bitcoin and blockchain as a currency. And have you looked into how that could undermine the U.S. currency?
Right now, our focus is on the governance of, and I agree with you, even the Chinese have questioned the legitimacy now of cryptocurrency, not just Bitcoin, there's multiples. So the whole argument, as I said, we don't even have a agenda yet how the innovation zone is going to be discussed. I have my own feelings. I'll be honest with you, I've got a close family member who's in, believe it or not, military intelligence. And he's given me what he's allowed to as a briefing on cryptocurrency. That is general information, basically. Yeah, that will be one of the discussions brought forth if we even have an agenda on what the discussion is going to be about. I'm almost betting now it doesn't occur. We don't even have a committee hearing, or it'll be a very quick meeting if we don't even have the agenda out. So you are right, concerns about it, yes, and they are there and we are aware of them. And that was even discussed during session 2 on it. So,
in the brevity of time, try to keep your answers
All right,
short.
I'm going to just actually close because I know we're running out of time, but I want to leave everybody in this room with one last comment. When you go out there and you're trying to help us and you're trying to register Republicans and get people to vote and recognize that they're nonpartisan, and they say, well, it's so over the top. I don't care about politics. This is just crazy. You tell them that you may not care about politics, but politics affects you every day of your life, and politics cares about you. So you need to get them involved, you need to get them engaged, and you get them to show up, because this is a battle we cannot afford to lose. So thank you all.
Joe? Oh, we're good. All right. Just briefly, I want to give an opportunity to a couple people just to remind people of their upcoming meetings. And the first one's Paul Jackson with First Friday. That's tomorrow.
Yeah, First Friday tomorrow starts at 6 o'clock. Thank you. First Friday starts at 6 o'clock tomorrow. It's over at Famous Dave's. We're having our underwear drive. For those that you don't know, because there's a lot of new faces here, which is fantastic. Kids Cottage, they have kids that have been abused or whatever. They're dragged away at the middle of the night. They have to give them clothes. The one thing they run out of is underwear. Underwear and socks. And, training bras for teenage girls, that type of thing. So tomorrow night, we'll be collecting underwear, socks for toddlers through teenagers. Sure. So come along, join us at First Friday. The food's free. The drinks are on you. Mine's a Newcastle Brown. And come along and help us get some underwear for kids. Thanks. What time? 6 o'clock.
6. The next one is Sandy Masters representing the Mount Rose. When's your meeting?
Our Mount Rose meetings are the last Wednesday of every month. We have been at Paisans. However, from here, I'm going to Tamarack to see if we can get back where we were before, because everyone loved it there. And I hope that's going to work out. Anyway, we enjoy everybody coming and seeing our meetings last Wednesday of every month at 5 o'clock.
The other is Carson City. they're having their general meeting.
Real quick, I'm just trying to make things happen in our market, in our Carson City market. We're having an ice cream social tonight from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. It's our opportunity to start doing what Paul does here in Reno. We're just trying to get the community together. We have 100 RSVPs already, and I'm sure it's going to blow out to 150. It's at our office tonight. We meet at the Casino Fandango on the 4th Thursday of the month. You're all invited to come. We have 2 speakers during that event. One is what's happening in Carson City, because our local residents want to know what's going on with government in Carson City, as well as a general speaker with general information. So you're more welcome to attend our meetings. The 4th Thursday, it's registration networking at 6:30. It starts at 7.
6:30.
Yeah, 6:30 start. Oh, tonight is 6 o'clock. You can always go to our CarsonCityRepublicans.com website, subscribe to our newsletter, and find out everything about what's going on. Address tonight, 1971 California Street, Carson City.
Thank you. And also, Tom Heck is also vice chairman of the Republican Men's Club of Washoe. With that in mind, I want to thank everybody coming to the first meeting. I think it turned out great. The next meeting is a lunch here, and I think it's the same room, September 2nd, and the speaker is Congressman Amadei. It'll be a good meeting, so show up. The other and the last thing is, Michael, even though you're running for state GOP chairman, when is the election?
We don't know. It's up to the chairman, the state chairman, to decide when he's going to have the meeting in the fall, and he hasn't done so yet. But when we know, it'll be 45 days after we find out.
Thank you. And lastly, if you need to go to church, God only knows I do, you can go to Pastor Washington's church on Pyramid, right? He might even accept me if the building doesn't shake. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. We're right on time, 10 o'clock. By the way, you can stay, talk to candidates, go see the Lieutenant Governor candidate, Cameron, in the back, ask questions, talk to him. You did a good job.